Everybody, welcome to Groundhog Day week. It is like the Groundhog Day year. Oh my goodness. So while people are ramping on, I'm wearing the Lead Baller 3/4 length t-shirt from one of our clients. They're going to be on our webinar or on our PPP. We're on PPP webinar. What am I talking about? They're going to be on the Anything But Typical podcast next week. What a cool story. So I said, they gave me some swag. So if you guys want to give us swag, we'll promote it. So anyway, you guys know the drill. If you got questions, hit us with the Q&A. And oh man, Jack. Oh my goodness.
Look, if I have to get thrust up, this is more for me than for you. I had to get the dust off of the shoulders from Mike, and it's black, so I'm good. I'm airing it out, so I don't get to wear it very often.
Yeah, I am embarrassed to admit that I finally took my coat from the office, brought it home, but it never even made it inside the house. It is still hanging up in my garage, from the garage cabinets. But I am wearing my St. John t-shirts. I wish I was there today instead of here, but anyway.
I understand. It's cold, but at least it's sunny out there today, but it's not St. John warm.
Yeah.
So besides the fact that, we're about 11 months into this, and we missed Groundhog Day officially last year under this whole new normal, if you will, but it sure felt like we had Groundhog Day every day, especially any drips and drabs of any PPP stuff that was coming out. So Jack, because you've got the jacket and you've got the colored shirt and you're looking over at the corporate center from Bank of America high atop, it looks like the Bank of America Plaza building, looks to be your background. You want to get us into any new stuff that has come through down the wire?
Yes, absolutely. So very, very good guess. You're almost right. I'm actually in the B of A Plaza building that just changed names. I took a photograph of my view out the window because I put the camera over here to actually look out, and then I was just confused where to look and stuff. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so last time I took a hiatus on providing statistics. So I'm going to provide you some statistics that I've seen published on the PPP. So what we have is that through January 31st, about 890,000 loans worth $72.7 billion. Now, what's interesting is just the week prior, it was only 35 billion and 400,000 loans. So within that last week of January, things really sped up, in fact, doubled on both the number of loans or more than double number of loans, but doubled approximately in the amount that was out there being borrowed. Bank of America is the top lender with about 35,000 loans worth 1.9 billion, and then JP Morgan coming in second. 3/4 of the loans approved by the SBA are for borrowers who already received one last year, and the average loan size was $81,635, with first draw loans being much smaller on average. First-time business applicants received an average of 21,157, whereas second-time recipients got $102,000. And then, let's see. All right, we talked about that. We talk about kind of access to loans and the disparity between different classes of people. So only 5% of the loans appear to have gone to minority and women-owned businesses, and those located in low-income neighborhoods. That most of the PPP loans, $68 billion or 93%, are second loans to borrowers who exhausted their first one last year. And as I said, the average loan size is $102,000. So those are some statistics. One thing that I'll go ahead and say on the front end, because I'm sure this question will come up, or I anticipate this question will come up, is, okay, what what is going on with the SBA PPP system, and what are the concerns this time around, at least in the first couple of weeks of it. So there are challenges with applications being denied acceptance in the system. So there's logistical, electronic, cyber world issues going on. There is SBA processing resolution delays for applicants successfully submitted to the E-Trans system. So if you get in, then there might also be issues with it getting processed. And then I've seen reports that there's capping of first and second draw loan amounts in relation to employees, so that if you were eligible, that you may not be getting approved for the full extent of your application, that they are kind of capping, and maybe it's a temporary cap just to make sure that all the money doesn't flow out so quickly, and that it's fairly dispersed for those people who applied later than who applied sooner. So so those are just a few things to share with you on the statistics.
Yeah. On my front, a couple things. On the legislative front, still nothing that we've seen so far out of North Carolina with respect to taxability of the expenses associated with PPP. If you know something there, Jack, feel free to chime in. So that's still going to be an add back to your income in North Carolina, which just stinks. And it's in the year that you incur the expenses, not the year of forgiveness, the way the tax forms read now. So hopefully something changes there before we actually have to press the button, file anything, anybody has to make a tax payment. Secondly, with respect to the two stimulus packages that came out, the Republican side and the Democrat side, on the Republican side, there was some additional funding in the $600 billion package for the Paycheck Protection Program. There weren't any details about what that actually was. I didn't get a full breakdown of the 1.9 trillion for the Democrat proposal, but I don't recall seeing any PPP recharge in that. So if anybody on the call is aware of something that was in the proposal, or if Jack, I can keep on talking and he fact checks me and finds something, that seemed like the 1.9 trillion in the Democrat side, most of that really was coming from, it's basic math. If you triple the stimulus amount, that in and of itself is $1 trillion. You extend unemployment benefits, and increase them, plus you roll out some money to the states. You're pretty much that's where the $1.9 trillion goes. So it makes sense to me that if there was some sort of business relief in there, it would be extremely limited, but there wasn't anything specifically called out. It was mostly increased individual help and some more stimulus money to the states so they could deploy vaccination programs, buy PPE, stuff like that. So if, assuming that this gets forced through, which it looks like on all indications it is, I don't think there's a whole lot of business provisions that, rightly or wrongly, I don't think there's a lot of business provisions that exist in the Democrat proposal. So the other thing, and if we have anybody, our news is we had two people that joined us at the tail end of last year, Van Smith and Matt Anderson. So if you're any clients of those firms that are joining us for the first time, welcome. We're going to be sending out probably either this afternoon or tomorrow some literature on the employee retention tax credit, because we're getting a lot of questions about the employee retention tax credit. And this is all those people that said, hey, you need to look in this, shame on you, and I don't like you. So this is officially what I have to say about the employee retention tax credit. So tell your friends, if you did not qualify for PPP round 2, you don't qualify, period. If you qualified for PPP round 2, you may qualify, period. Now, to get into the details of that, The reason for that is that with the employee retention tax credit, the bar for 2020 is your gross receipts had to be down 50%. So by default, if your gross receipts are down 50% in one quarter, that means they were also down 25% in one quarter. Thus, you qualify for PPP round two. If you do not qualify for PPP round two, you do not qualify for the employee retention tax credit for 2020. No sense even looking into it any further. I'll get to what you could qualify for in a second, though. If you qualify for PPP round two, which means that you were down at least 25% in one comparative quarter, then you may qualify for the 2020 credit, which was 50%, or you may qualify on the going forward credit, which is down at least 20%. So if you qualify for PPP round two, you may be able to go backwards if you suffered massive losses in revenue. And you probably could qualify if you're still having a revenue reduction in the first quarter. And the thing is, with the first quarter, you don't have to wait until your 941s are due because it actually shows up on a payroll tax credit. You can preemptively stop remitting withholding and payroll tax to take advantage of the credit. So if you're still down and suffering, and you qualify for PPP round two, then you ought to be looking at taking it prospectively in 2021 while we have the time to do the analysis to see, okay, is there any place where it would fit in 2020? But if you didn't even qualify for PPP round two, you didn't qualify by default because you didn't meet the threshold criteria. Now, if you never took PPP funds in the first place because you didn't meet the employer cap, you were too big of an employer, could be that you qualify a different circumstance. So the one that people aren't asking a bunch of questions on, but they should be, is the FFCRA, which is the tax credit associated with the Family Medical Leave Act. That did not require any reduction in revenue. That simply said, if you honor the provisions of FMLA and still pay people and retain their jobs, and they say, hey, pay me, I've got the COVID, you qualify for the credit. So at BGW, it's been terrible. We've had a few COVID cases, and for those COVID cases, we have taken the tax credit, required no revenue reduction. So just, that's the one that people ought to be looking for, not the employee retention tax credit. To get the FCRA, it does require, you probably need to update some policies, especially if you're going backwards in time and trying to do something retroactively. If you never put something in place, you'd want to consider putting something in place retroactively. Definitely would want to look at it prospectively, since you could still opt into it in 2021. That to me is the one that seems to be more valuable, that people should be asking questions about, but aren't. Either way, to all the BGW clients on the call, if you're on life support, and this is for Matt Pugh, if you are hurting and on life support from a cash flow perspective and believe that you qualify for the credit, we'll put a rush job to put it in place. For everybody else, we're gonna, our goal, well, we're not gonna let any tax credit go unturned, but we'd like to do that in the summer once we get through the rush of PPP applications and tax returns and tax extensions, because it's not like the credit goes away or it expires. So it really, for us, it's kind of, hey, if you need the cash right now, we'll go back and get it for you. But if you can otherwise wait, we'll take care of everything during the summer. That's my paid public service announcement for the day for Matt Pugh.
Matt Pugh is not on the participant list today because his head is down working on stuff right now.
He listens to him afterwards, so that was for him.
Hey, so anybody with questions, hit us up on Q&A. You can harass us on the chat. Connie, thanks. She noticed the lead baller t-shirt. That's awesome. I heard something yesterday and it was a broadcast. It was a local news broadcast, and it was another lesser known firm, law firm, and less capable, let's put it that way. But they were talking about you just had to be down 25% in 1 month. He said it 1 month versus 1 quarter more than a couple times. And I thought, is that right? I don't think so.
That's a negatory, Ghost Rider. Don't we all wish?
Yeah, because I was like, I don't think that's right.
I mean, if he's
1
saying
quarter,
that like 1 month, like a huge loss, but when you're looking at, the 3 months of the quarter, that it ends up being, if he's saying, look, you had a really bad month kind of thing, that may get you into it, but the calculation is still quarter to quarter. So
yeah,
not
what I
sure.
heard him say was you just have to be down 25% 1 month over the previous year. And I'm thinking, I don't think so. And he may have meant a quarter, but he said a month. I've been guilty of that before too. But anyway, so any questions out there?
It is a matter of public record, Gary. We do always like the shaming. No, I'm just kidding.
That's why I didn't call out the name of the law firm, Dewey, Cheatham and Howe. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Wasn't us.
Yeah.
Two things. One, as a follow-up, there is discussion as far as the pool of money and where this $1 trillion package, trillions of dollars, trying to come from, is essentially, is it a recycling of money that's unused in the PPP program or in the CARES Act, and which basically means a reallocation. So it is in some respects like, where's this money going to come from? Well, some of it's already sitting there in theory, and some people would love to do a money grab and move it from that column of available funds for the PPP program and other SBA type programs and move it over into another column. So there's that issue. On the the Families First Act, I have, if you're okay with that, Gary, to send to in the chat a link to an article that some of my partners did at the end of December that is still pretty current as far as information goes. It kind of walks you through it as a resource, but and I'm sure you guys have published stuff, but or I can send it to you to push out, whichever you wish. But it's another resource because we haven't been talking about those kind of things on this program very much, but those are very much relevant to your business moving forward and potential opportunities to help subsidize the burn and the pain that all of us are going through.
Yeah. So I think I caught your comment there, John. So yes, you are correct that the rules changed. The dollar amounts changed for the employer retention tax credit in the legislation. Criteria for 2020 down 50%. Criteria for 2021 down 20%. And in 2021, it's specifically, you get your test period is still 2019. So it'd be January 2021 relative to potentially January 2019 or January 2020, whichever kind of fact pattern was going to work in your benefit. And you can start applying for the credit prospectively before you have to file your 941. So the criteria did change in 2021. My point is that criteria isn't backwards. It's still forward. So 2020 still stands at 50%, which would be like a lot of the calls that we're getting within our client base is, hey, someone's telling me I should go back and get this credit and amend tax returns. It's like, slow down, Junior. Unless you qualify for PPP round 2, you're not going to qualify to go backwards and get that credit because you wouldn't have met the bar. It's possible that you could meet it prospectively going forward. And kind of to follow up as we're stalling for time for questions as well. The other thing that I've seen out there related to pools of money is if you look at the appointments in the Treasury Department, they are international tax experts. So there's also a lot of speculation in the wonk department, which is the zone that I live in, that the reason he's hired all these wonky tax people is they're going to start going after stronger enforcement of existing law first, because kind of the speculation around out there is that, there's anywhere in the neighborhood of, 300 to 500 billion, that's with a B, $billion a year of unpaid corporate taxes. So that's not you and me, that's Apple and Google and companies like that, of unpaid taxes based on the fact that they can't look deep enough to enforce the laws that are already on the books. So that's also, kind of the thought, that's also kind of the thought process of how do we get this stuff paid for by enforcing, stuff that's already in the books. And, nobody's going to squeal about the fact that, Facebook, who paid, I'm making this up, but paid a 3% effective US corporate tax rate, is now paying a 5% effective US corporate. Like, I'm not complaining about that personally as a libertarian. So it seems pretty fair.
So let me bring this up, that, I have the privilege of working with some governmental and quasi-governmental entities that are responsible for expenditures of public money. And so that's a kind of a fancy way of saying is that I have reviewed some program materials as far as disbursement of money. And so there are programs, I mean, we focus obviously on the PPP program, but there are programs out there on the city, on the county, private foundation levels. So I would suggest that you constantly and consistently just go out and see what you can find on the state and local levels as far as additional assistance. And you might be surprised. I mean, if you listen to the news, you hear about these programs that are geared towards low income, minority based, et cetera, because that's what they're reporting on. And I think there is a presumption that these programs that are out there are only for people that and businesses that are in that situation. And I have had several occasions where clients have said, I think I qualify for this, but I'm not sure. One example, that my client runs a entertainment venue beyond being a business, and there's funds out there for true entertainment venues. And I'm not talking about the businesses that have a large patio out back. I mean, it's more substantial than that. So there are things out there. Just take a look and don't give up, don't relent. At least once a week, take a look and see what's out there.
So any other questions out there? I just sent a note to Robert because he's faithfully on here. And I was just curious about any things that you're hearing out there or anybody else. But Robert's a fractional CFO. He is working with business owners day in, day out, wondering if you're hearing any additional things beyond what we've talked about today. So not to put you on the spot there, Robert, but and maybe he's, making omelets while he's listening to us. I don't know. So anyway, any other questions out there? Also, the other thing is if anybody, as we're kind of bouncing through this current phase of PPP and ERC and these other things, as well as the fact that we are now in officially busy season, which has never ended as of last year. Seemed like it just kept rolling from March on. If you guys have things that you want us to cover that we can use in this kind of form, oh, hey, here we go. From Robert, only challenge is slow speed of EIDL process. Any suggestions for that?
I wish, because you're relying completely on a third party, the SBA, for that. I mean, you're not going through a traditional lender. So no. I mean, I wish, but no.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest is be a squeaky wheel, but I don't know if that works in this case or not. Be a less than harassing, but more than just ordinarily assertive. Yes, is a way of putting
I'm curious too, to the audience, what are you hearing from your commercial bankers? Pinnacle has been pretty good about being proactive. Not that others haven't, but they've been probably the ones I've heard from the most, which have been still, hey, they're getting their act together. Pump the brakes a little bit. We're going to open things up. The smaller banks got first in, even though it sounds like, Bank of America has just like crushed past everybody else already. So I'm curious as to what anybody else is hearing out there.
Quiet crowd today.
It is a quiet crowd. They must be a bunch of accountants. And I do know we do have some on this line. But Connie, I saw you get on here, so I'm really glad that I was able to get you that link in time. I don't know why we haven't had these reminders coming from Zoom. They stopped for anybody that had registered before, so we keep getting that. So I've asked our folks to work with Zoom and figure out what is going on with that, but I don't know. Just as a reminder too, we will put this thing up on BGW CPA YouTube channel later on this afternoon. Okay, John, thanks. Vicky, great, thank you. Our bank is not processing forgiveness for 30 days pending some legislative changes. Okay, that's good to know. From Vicky, B of A is still very active. Small business owners who want first PPP loan are having trouble. A few of my small business owner friends say that they're not sure, say that. And then John, back to, I'm not sure what those legislative changes are. So.
Yeah, and I'm just a couple of other examples of, so in between an EIN number and a social security number, if you had put an EIN number, but then they're asking for social security number, I mean, there's just some logistical impasses that need to be fixed. And I'm actually reading from an article that was published in the Journal of Accountancy. So sorry for intruding into your world in your bubble, fellows, but it's the AICPA that had sent a letter to the SBA and saying, hey, our clients are having these issues, fix it. And so, the concerns that we talked about a few minutes ago are essentially those concerns, which is it's logistical, mechanical, meaning the computer system, but then it's also just that they're asking for, in some cases, different information than they did the first time, or they're processing it differently. Remember, we talked about last week that supposedly they revamped, reamped, revised their system to make it better. And, with programming, that's going to happen. You have the code that, they were supposed to use whatever code, and they use that code, and it causes this problem. So they have to debug their system. Like, they need to do an update to their app. Essentially, that would be the best way of saying it. They need to update the app, but they can't take it offline, and they have to just deal with it as they go. So
I heard that they contracted the same group that did the original Obamacare website. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Hey, let's go to these guys. We can spend some of that.
Yeah, they'll learn from their mistakes.
Trillion.
Sure.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be one of the IT people dealing with any of this stuff. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I mean, no sense in holding on here unless somebody else needs it. Oh, by the way, Mark, that's good. He did receive the Zoom reminder today, so maybe we've got hope on the horizon there. So the question is will it be Groundhog Day next week again too? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, if nothing else, I would think that Yeah, I haven't seen when they're set to actually try to pass something on the stimulus front, but I got to think that's going to be sometime relatively soon.
Depends on what all's going on, you know.
Yeah, and I'm gonna throw some I'm gonna throw some speculation and conspiracy theory onto the fire here.
Oh gosh,
Um,
great.
and well, I mean, they haven't talked about it too much, but I think, to me, in my own opinion, if I were there, an easy win would be, hey, Republicans, get on board with the size. We'll throw in a couple more business bucks and some liability protection. Because in some respects, I mean, the liability protection kind of makes sense to me, at least being a non-lawyer and an employer in someone who has had coronavirus cases. It's like, look, I don't know how you would even possibly trace that back to me. So it's like, I understand, like, in certain classes of industries where, hey, maybe they could have done a little bit better of a job. I can understand the apprehension around not granting some sort of liability protection around that. But for, Joe average public who has been trying to do the right thing, who just has a disgruntled employee, which we've had clients that have had those, that are essential workers that have had to come back, that I know are being pretty darn safe, that, these people are posting Instagram pictures of themselves in freaking Panama City the week before, no mask on, hanging out at the beach, hugging at the bar. It's like, don't tell me you got COVID in the workplace.
Right.
So it just, I could see that being a good win, for people, frankly.
Yeah, we've seen that too. We've written several response letters to people who are alleging that our client was the cause of or was negligent in providing certain protections. And it is, and in one case, we did exactly that, went to the Facebook page. It's interesting what you were doing around the time that you contracted COVID at our establishment. And, but we were kind about it. We were like, okay, we just don't think that, with everything that people generally have going on, that, you can pinpoint that and make us responsible for you contracting COVID. Well, no, blah, 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 very adamant. It's like, okay. So then we go a different route, which is, here are the posts that you posted and the photographs, etc. And if you don't stop harassing, essentially at this point, then there are going to be consequences. And so magically, we don't hear from them anymore. It's like, okay, never mind, just kidding. So, yeah, but I mean, that is an important part of what's out there, is to provide some protections for businesses so that, it's at this point, not an assumption of risk. I mean, if you come back to work, there's all kinds of countervailing arguments. Well, if you need to go to work, you're taking a risk. Well, what is a reasonable risk? And for servers and others, I had a lunch yesterday, and I'm very just protective in general where what I do and where I go. And we've been doing a lot of takeout, but if I sit in a restaurant, it's usually because they have a QR code for the menu. They have a QR code on the receipt that you can pay. So there's no touching of pens and everything else. They a lot of places don't readily offer you straws unless you ask, because they're being environmentally friendly. So things like that. But and so my point is that even though businesses can do those kind of things, if an employee or a customer comes in that that you're serving, then do you want to protect them, and you want to encourage them to come in and operate the business, meaning from the business owner standpoint. So it's really important. It goes pretty deep as to what that means. And it's also, is there jurisdiction to do those kind of things? Can the federal government say that you, business owner in Charlotte, North Carolina, are hereby granted immunity for things that you do if you do things a certain way? Like, you wipe your tables down, you use chemicals, you can prove it, those kind of things. So there's also jurisdictional issues. So it's not just about money. It's not just about protecting necessarily against frivolous situations. It's about everything in between those two.
So one of the things I was thinking about, I was going to get fancy and launch a poll, but it requires too much editing. I would be curious, anybody that's a controller, CFO, CEO, running a business out there, what's your general temperature of Q1 going into Q2 even for 2021? Are you seeing things flat? Are you seeing things moving up? Are you seeing things moving down? I'm just curious. Hit us up on the chat, and I'd just like to convey some of that, to just hear from you guys. Granted, it's not a statistical poll, but I just like to hear from those that are diving into this what the general sentiment is. Are you seeing things moving up, flat, or down? So, and you can be anonymous, that's fine, but I'd be curious.
And on behalf of the audience, bless you, Adam, while they're.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yes, all day. Yeah, and I'll say, just from what we've seen just kind of in the first couple months or so, is that the businesses that were able to make it, there's opportunities for them to expand it through M&A transactions or kind of picking up pieces from others. I've seen some business owners who may be in early retirement, or maybe have finally said, yeah, I should have retired a couple years ago. So it's about that time. So we've seen a pickup in M&A type activity. And then I think that will continue down into the future. I think we're also going to see some adjustments in commercial real estate, whether you're a landlord or a tenant. Having landlords that I met with one of our clients recently who has been fortunate enough to have enough in reserve to provide essentially a subsidy, meaning lower rental rates for his tenant clients for a period of time, in anticipation of them being able to succeed and move forward. And not everyone is in that position at all on either side. So I think that will also, our litigators are going to be busy dealing with that kind of stuff, dealing with the business interruption issues, force majeure issues. So, and I haven't seen a whole lot of activity in relation to that. Like, hey, there's a big win in North Carolina courts where a business owner was successful against its insurance agent. And I'll throw that out there. If anybody else is or has been successful, I'd like to hear about it. I don't think that that exists yet, because I think that would be huge news for all of us, that, hey, here's a pathway for you to get some money back from your insurance company, when they had previously said, no, we don't pay for that. So.
Yeah, so one of our anonymous attendees said they're up so far, and it's looking pretty good, off to a good start. So that's good. These guys, Lead Baller, a year ago, they were 3 people. They're 30 people now. And, that's, they do have a co-share workspace that they're all actually in the office, but we also know some other kind of startups that are in the software world, and they're doing well. And they decided to not go into commercial real estate place, and they started working from their homes, and they don't really see that changing. So they're not in the WeWorks of the world or whatever, but again, those are different than manufacturing or whatever, where you've got big sunk costs and lots of overhead, and real estate that's already sunk. So anyway, anybody else out there that wants to give us a temperature check on how they're doing or how they're projecting? I know we've got some medical folks on here as well, some construction. My construction clients, I'm still seeing, strong growth in that as well. Adam, you seen anything from a trend standpoint?
Yeah, restaurants are suffering some, and then some types of different manufacturing, but that's really the biggest place that I've seen the impact.
All right. Well, any further thoughts from you guys before we sign off? Because we're not getting a lot of a lot of chatter back and forth here. Hopefully, we're providing some value, but we didn't have a whole lot of new news to talk about today. Any parting thoughts?
I got nothing, buddy.
All right.
Stay warm and safe and smart.
There you go.
That is some great advice. All right, Jack, Adam, thank you so much. Everybody that has been on this, thank you very much. We appreciate each and every one of you. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you along the way. You guys have a great day. We'll talk again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.